Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming back to Welcome Back to America. This is DB Frick. I am still with Jackie the Joke Man Martling, who was nice enough to spend some time with me today. I wanted to ask you, Jackie, when was the first time you met Howard? Where was it? How did it happen?
It's very simple. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, anybody that's a fan, any question you can think of is in my book. My book is called The Joke Man, Bow to Stern, and it's available on audio, Kindle. People love the audio version because they drive along in the car, and it's like having me on the radio. But that's a very common question. What happened was when I bailed out of the music business, I always steal Rodney's joke. Yeah, I quit music. And to tell you how bad I was doing, I was the only one who knew I quit. Okay. So I started telling jokes on stage. And after a while, I said to my girlfriend, they laugh every time I open my mouth. I should make a record. She said, so make a record. So I borrowed money from everybody I knew and made a record. And then I made another record. And then I made another record. I mean, there's a lot more to this in the book. You know, I had met Rodney and sold him some jokes, the whole thing. But by 1982, I had 3 comedy LPs, and I sent them everywhere. And I was working at a place called Garvin's in Washington, D.C., and the owners there loved me. And Harry Montecrusos was one of the owners. They said, hey, Jackie, there's a guy that just got fired down here from the radio, and he just got hired at WNBC in New York. You really should look him up because he would love you. So blind, I sent my 3 comedy albums to Howard Stern, care of WNBC, Rockefeller Plaza. I didn't know who the guy was. I could have cared less. I sent so much stuff to everybody and mostly didn't get any responses. A couple of months later, my girlfriend Nancy calls me up and said, hey, that guy Howard Stern just called. He wants you to call him. I called him up and said, hey, we listened to your records. You know every joke in the world. Why don't you come in and hang out on the air today? At the time, I'm running Governor's Comedy Shop in Levittown, and all of a sudden I drive in. You know, I'm in WNBC, and there's Imus's picture and Letterman and Carson, and like, whoa. And I walked in and sat down, and it was Howard and Robin and Fred and me. And the last day I worked there in March of 2001, it was Howard and Robin and Fred and me, which I was always very proud of, that it was the same 4 people 18 years later. Of course, I was the one that fucked it up. But I sat there and laughed for 3 or 4 hours, and at the end of the day, Howard said, man, you're a lot of fun. Why don't you come back next week? So I came back once a week for 3 years for free. And then he called me up and said, we're going to mornings. Give me a price. And I went to mornings with them for a couple of days a week. And within a month or 2, I was on 5 days a week because, to tell the truth, he was a lot funnier when I was there because I was passing him notes. And not to be boring, but the rest is history. We went to Pluto. We went straight to Pluto. And it was an incredible ride. That's all.
Now, you said that you fucked it up. You said that.
Well, I don't mean I left the show. You know, I asked for more money and they didn't want to give it to me, and I didn't cave. You know, in other words, I was the first to leave. You know, I was the first one out of the circle.
Do you ever watch the show? Have you ever done that?
I never listened to it and never watched. I never, not even. People ask this too, and I only listened to the show in the real beginning when I had first started going in one day a week, and I gave them a couple ideas for the Black Helicopter Reporter and for some other stuff, and then I started bringing in jokes for Stump the Comedians. But I was actually listening one day, and I love telling the story because I was in the kitchen of the house we were renting, standing on a little step stool, and I was fixing something, and the reason it's so memorable is because I don't fix anything. So the odds that I was on a stool fixing something, and he was talking, and Gary said, hey, Howard, there's a girl here wants to come in, take all the clothes off. And I said, oh, well, have her come in. And the girl came in, and Howard said, who are you? And I swear to you, I don't know if this tape exists anywhere. I'm sure it does, but I've never been able to find it. Somehow it doesn't exist. But he said, who are you? She says, my name's Maria, and I work at the door at the Comedy Factory outlet in Philadelphia, and my favorite comedian is Jackie Martling. And I could have fallen off the step stool. You know, I mean, I was killing in Philadelphia for years before I met Howard. You know, 1979, 80, 81, 82, right. There was Bananas and the Comedy Factory outlet and the Comedy Works and the Comedy Cabaret. And all the guys from Long Island, we drove down there all the time and had so much fun. Oh, it was there was a place where you literally, the Comedy Works was a long room. And if you had to take a leak, you had to go down a flight and walk through the room and walk in front of a belly dancer. It's just not believable. The only people who believe those stories are people that actually worked those rooms, unbelievable. And then, that wound up that scene is in the movie, and in the movie it's Jenna Jameson, and I'm sitting next to her folding her clothes as she's getting undressed, which is really fun. And the truth of it is, the girl that came in was wearing like a fur coat, and she just, I guess, took off a fur coat. She was nude, and people listening, Howard was, still somewhat new to New York, so people didn't know for sure that everything that ever happened on that show really happened. But people didn't know that yet. If he says, "Hey, look, there's a naked girl in here," as Cousin Brucey would say, "This was theater of the mind," But it was real.
That is an amazing story. Where there's a few pictures that you.
If anybody is an old enough Stern fan to go way back, there was a writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer that hated the Stern Show and wrote scathing articles about us and was so crappy. And he married Maria, the girl who got undressed. You couldn't make that up. You could not. Stu Bykowski. And of course, incredible. I had met him a million times from working, in Philadelphia. It's a small world. I was just talking to a guy who did a podcast in Detroit yesterday. A really, really funny guy, Jeff Dworkin.
Yeah, I know him.
So we're talking, and I said, "You realize that the night I met you, I went out to do a big charity event for Erin Cummings, a thing called Mittens for Detroit. And Kevin Metheny was there. The actual pig virus, well, the band was Pig Vomit. His name was Pig Virus, but I think they referred to him as Pig Vomit in the movie. I never figured that out. But the real guy was there. And Jeff was like, "Oh, man, I can't believe you didn't introduce me to him." I said, "Well, how would I know that anybody was a Stern fan long enough ago to have any idea who he was, But he died not too long ago. But that was Paul Giamatti's first, kick-ass role,
He played it very memorably, too. Very memorable.
It was so great. It was so great. Great times. Great times.
You sent me a bunch of pictures, a lot of great pictures of you with some amazing celebrities. I want to talk about a few of those pictures. But the first one, since we're on Howard, the only picture of you and Howard that you sent was a picture from must have been the early 80s, and you're doing a telethon, and he's pinching.
They asked them to appear on the Easter Seals telethon, and I had just started on the show, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come in and answer phones on the telethon?" So I said, "Sure." And then he came over, and somebody took a picture of us standing there. That's when he was built like a pear, and he still had his Jufro and his mustache. We were very close. We had a lot of fun.
I'm sure. You can tell that. There's no way anyone would gain anything other than that from watching the show. There's another picture of you and Willie Nelson, which is just awesome. I'd like to know.
Willie Nelson is a dear friend. We actually. I beat him in a rolling contest on the Stern Show. And the next time, one of the times he came in, we actually played. He played On the Road Again, and I played lead guitar. Fred played bass. We had a band called The Losers, but that's a long story, but it was great fun. And Willie and I went out and hosted a show for Marijuana Policy Project and Normal. And Willie was headlining the show, and he would only do it if it was for both of the organizations. And it was in Austin, and the opening act was his daughter and Arlo Guthrie's daughter, Kathy Guthrie. They have a band called Folk Uke, and here I'm hoping that Willie's audience will be able to handle what I do.
Right.
And the opening song by Amy Nelson and Kathy Guthrie, with Willie singing along with them, was "Dumb Motherfucker Got Fucked Up and Lost the Fucking Whatever." The title of the song had "fucking" it 5 times.
Motherfucker, you were fine.
And me and Willie have been exchanging jokes for 25 years. We send jokes back and forth, and he loves it and I love it. I've got stoned with him 3 or 4 times. He's in my documentary. He's in my documentary. Went down, and I had I got some, 10 minutes of me talking to him that his daughter Amy filmed. But then we asked him if we could film him for the documentary with a good camera. And me and Ian Carr went down to New Orleans, and we got on the bus, and he taped me and Willie talking for like 10 minutes. And then we get done with the interview, and Willie passes the pipe, and we each take a toke, and we couldn't see. And he got up and did a 75-minute set. And he has
his own brand.
He's the greatest character. Yeah, Willie Reserve. He's the greatest character, and he is who he is.
Yeah, no, I get
see
that.
Is what you get. Just a sweet, sweet, wonderful guy,
I had an experience with him. I was interning at Conan, and he came on the show with Johnny Cash. And I was in the green room with them. And because I was an intern, he rolled a joint and lit it and passed it my way. But because I was an intern, I was like, I can't take this. I'm going to get fired. And he offered Johnny some of it. And Johnny was like, I don't do that anymore, Willie. It was a great moment.
Yeah, but Ian Carr, the guy who did the documentary, was my partner on the Jackie's Joke Hunt for 8 years. And he's a nice Jewish boy, and he'll drink a little bit, but he's not really a pothead. But he said, listen, when fucking Willie Nelson hands you the pipe, you take a toke,
Right, I really should have. Have you felt that you've been censored at all in the last few years since comedy has been taking this big turn?
Well, maybe I have been, but I didn't notice it. I don't work that much. The people who come to see me, they know what I do. I do a call-in to this David Feldman podcast, the David Feldman Show, who does a very liberal, long, great podcast. It's fairly serious and gets some comics. And at the end, he calls me up, and I do 10 or 15 minutes of the dirtiest, filthiest, wildest jokes in the world. And people love it. They need that. I never, people know that I'm crazy, but I was never a guy that used the N word or the K word for a Jew. The worst I got was in the very beginning, I used to say Polak, and somebody explained to me, no, that's just as offensive. So I tell jokes that are incredibly offensive, but there is a rhyme and a reason to it, like, the Polish guy's laughing at the Jewish jokes and the Jewish guy's laughing at the black jokes. And I'm like, hey, guys, we're all in this together. Let's fuck with the midget.
We got to get you into the Radio Hall of Fame.
Oh, please. I don't belong in the Radio Hall of Fame. Listen, I want to tell people, email me, Jokeland, especially this is a lot of Long Island people, jokeland@AOL.com. I will answer any question. If you're from Long Island, it's a crime if you don't have my book, because it's the whole thing. And go to cameo.com/Jackie Martling and get people, they go nuts. Hey, Charlie, your son Eddie says you got a little cock. Happy birthday. And if they're a fan of mine, they get off on it.
Are you living on Long Island right now? You're on Long Island?
I've been in Bayville for 50 years, 40 years. I'm having survivor's remorse because my beautiful girlfriend, Barbara, and I live on Long Island Sound in a beautiful old house. And I'm broadcasting from my garage, which is now my pine-laden office. And I do podcasts, and I do cameo.com. And, I was driving to gigs until the gigs stopped.
Yeah, when was your last gig? Where and when was it?
I think the last gig I did was I did a weekend at Uncle Vinny's Comedy Club in South Jersey. And just before that, I did the Algonquin in Jersey. And before that, I did the theater in Boca Raton, whatever that's called, the Meisner Auditorium in Boca. And I don't do a lot of gigs. I'll do 2 a month, 3 a month. Some weeks I have 3 gigs. Sometimes I go 2 weeks. But, I don't go seeking them out. I do a lot of parties, firemen and people like that have a nice budget, and they want me. And I get up there and I'm pretty dirty, and I peddle my stuff, but as much because I like to talk to the people. People buy a book and they have a head-on with you, and I have always enjoyed that. Always, I was selling albums after my gigs in 1979, and people used to make fun of me. Now you can't go to a show without somebody selling their crap afterwards. You know, it was just something I did. You know, it was I knew it was a way to make some extra money. It was a way to promote yourself. It was a win-win-win-win-win. And people, I'd be like, how do you know, when I first was on the Stern Show, I'd work there once a week. And he'd say, why don't you bring in some other guys? And I'd say to somebody, hey, you want to come on the Howard Stern Show with me? And these guys would say, what's it pay? I said, what's it pay? It's 50,000 watts of radio in the tri-state area. You can't buy that kind of exposure. To this day, there's still guys that come up to me and say, I can't believe I fucking said no when you asked me to go on the Stern Show. And I said, you know what? Even if he had never wound up going anywhere, it would have been a stupid thing to say no to it, you know.
Even when people do get paid to be a guest, it's never a huge, like even on late night and all those shows.
Oh yeah, no, it's an honorarium. You know,
right. I just want to close things up now and wrap things up, and I really appreciate you coming down here today and being on Welcome Back to America. It's a really big deal. I want to ask you one more question though as we leave.
8 inches. The answer is 8 inches.
8 inches. Okay. That's a good ending. Where do you see comedy going as it changes? Is there anything that you?
I don't care where it's going. I just want to see it starting. That's all. I'm at a premium now. People love me. They can't get enough of my jokes because my jokes don't go anywhere. They're poop and sex and farts and fun and stupidity between men and women. There's nothing funny about the world except for the human situation, the human experience, and that's all I do. You know, farts and burps and marriage and divorce, that stuff will never stop being funny, and I will never go out of, not me. These jokes have been around forever. Like Red Fox used to say, don't look at me, ladies. Somebody got to tell them. I don't know what's going to happen. I know guys are getting up and doing what they can. After 9/11, I had a gig like 3 weeks later in Las Vegas, and I had a sold-out show. And I got up and did an hour and a half and blew the room away. And then when I was done, I said, listen, I don't want you to think I didn't happen to notice what was going on in New York City 3 weeks ago. But if I came up and mentioned it, that would have let the air out of the whole room. So I figured, you know what? We really need to laugh for a while.
Right.
And then we'll say, how much did that suck? And you can come up and say hello and we'll cry together. And I got a standing ovation, people, because it was the right call. It wasn't insensitivity. You don't start a show with like, it really sucks that all those people died at the World Trade Center, but let's try and laugh. That's not common.
No, it's not going to work. I really appreciate you coming down today, Jackie. This was a great interview. I learned a lot.
My pleasure. Hey, one more thing.
Yes, please.
All you Long Islanders, 516-922-WINE is in its 41st year of operation. Just like I started in 1979 to promote the show. Me and Richie Minervini were doing at Cinnamon, which grew into East Side Comedy Club, which grew into Long Island Comedy. And if you dial 516-922-WINE right now, you'll hear me telling jokes and plugging something. The way it really got kicked in the ass was in 1982. Rick Dees used to put it on his morning show in LA and on his nationally syndicated show. And he told his entire audience that 516-922-9463 was Tom Selleck's home phone number.
That's hilarious.
And Rick Dees is the guy who named me the Joke Man.
Yeah, no. Oh, did he really? Oh, my God. Yeah.
Buy the book. Buy the book. I didn't send you a book.
Yes, you did.
Well,
You sent me a bunch of stuff back in 1998. I met you back in 1998.
No, I didn't have my autobiography. Send me your address so I can send you my autobiography. If you like this stuff at all, you'll go nuts.
Definitely.
Nuts.
I appreciate that, Jackie. That's a really big deal. We're going to come right back after this. Thanks for checking out Welcome Back to America tonight. Jackie the Joke Man Martling.
Anytime. I'm always here. I got 1% left on my iPad. See? That's good living. Good
Perfect
living.
timing. Love you, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, David.
Be well.